Hey everyone, welcome to the E2 Effective Elders podcast. E2 is devoted to coaching your elder team to win by providing biblical and practical resources in authentic relationships. E2 wants nothing more than to equip you to move God's kingdom forward in the place you're serving Jesus. Visit us at e2elders.org and please share this good word with others.
Hey friends, thanks for tuning in to our E2 Effective Elders podcast. And we are grateful to CDF Capital for their generosity in investing in elders across the country and around the world. They make our podcast possible. Thanks, CDF. And thanks also to Dr. Jim Estep. Jim is a co-founder of E2. Jim, David, and myself, we teamed together many years ago to make this possible. Jim is the Vice President of Academics at CCCB, Central Christian College of the Bible in Moberly, Missouri. And congratulations to you, Jim. You just got approved there at Central, the brand new master's program that goes online this fall. You drove the bus on that initiative, and we're very proud of you. And you got E2 engaged in being faculty for that.
Absolutely.
So, yeah,
we had a great team here putting it together, and look forward to launching it in the fall.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Jim is going to help us as elders to pursue life after COVID. And I've invited Jim to speak a word of challenge to us as elders so that when we do get the green light from the president, from governors, from mayors, we get the green light and we can get back on the road again, we will already know what it is that we want to pursue for life after COVID. So, Dr. Estep, would you speak a word of challenge to all of us as elders?
Well, thanks for the opportunity, and coming to you from Macon, Missouri, where we are in shelter in place. And so we're living in the same conditions most of the country is. And if anything, what the one motto that I've come up with is that, that really necessity is the mother of invention. Mm-hmm. That's not just a cliche or just a proverb. It's proven itself true that when you have a need that presents itself, you have to rise to the challenge to address it. And I can't think of a time in our history that the church has had to face a pandemic of this nature in recent decades, where the severity of it caused us to have to rethink how we do literally everything. Mm-hmm. Nothing can be assumed. And therefore, the necessity for change is right there on our doorstep. And I can see several areas where COVID-19 has actually caused us to have to pause and rethink what we're doing as churches. One, for example, is simply theological. Many of us just have a default theology that when I say, oh, it's Sunday morning, I'm going to church. Mm-hmm. Well, church means a location. The word church means a building. And yet we'd say, oh, no, the church is the people. But that default theology, we think in terms of a locale. Well, now we have to go, what happens when the church can't assemble in that location? What happens when the church can't gather together? Mm-hmm. We have to really understand the church as the people, that this is the church deployed to its families, its neighborhoods, to serve in that capacity, not simply gathered together at one time, 1 hour on a Sunday morning. I think another thing it really challenges us to do is to consider the whole attractional versus missional. Now, Simple fact is two general polar approaches to doing ministry. You have the attractional model, which is the most common, that says, come to the church. Mm-hmm. We are attracting people. Our means of evangelism and discipleship and reaching out is all to bring them here. Mm-hmm. And that works when you're not under a pandemic.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But when we're under all the shelter-in-place orders and the restricted travel orders, all of a sudden the missional model takes over that says, wherever you are, wherever God has planted you, you become the church there. Mm-hmm. And so how many times have we seen families worshiping online, or small groups gathering online. And all of a sudden, it's the church deployed.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to rethink where are we at on that spectrum between attractional and missional. But this virus has caused us all to go very missional.
Yes.
All of a sudden. I think it also exposed, it made us self-aware to some vulnerabilities.
Mm-hmm.
When you've been doing church the same way you've always done it and did not see the need for any kind of innovation, church becomes something we could assume.
Mm-hmm.
I've noticed, for example, how many churches had to send out instructions on how to prepare communion.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I've never seen a church send out instructions on how to take communion prior to this, but when people are taking it at home, they start having questions like, does it have to be unleavened bread?
Mm-hmm.
I saw a blog, do we use grape juice or wine?
Mm-hmm.
All these questions coming up because if you go to church and you have a practice, you're on autopilot. Nobody's thinking about it.
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden this happens and we're having to give instructions that we never gave before. Mm-hmm. We have to rethink if somebody wants to make a decision, what do we do? How do they contact the church? How do they get a hold of one of the ministers? How do they ask for prayer? Mm-hmm. So everything had to be rethought. And a lot of churches that also were the naysayers of technology.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have streaming services. We don't have Wi-Fi. We don't have all that.
Giving online.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. No, never online. Basically almost worked as a badge of honor. Mm-hmm. Found themselves very quickly becoming televangelists. Mm-hmm. Found themselves very, very quickly jumping to an online format, having to learn everything from scratch. And so I think this has actually caused us to expose our vulnerabilities and our shortcomings, perhaps, in our forethought of the church. Mm-hmm. But perhaps one of the biggest things that I hope is a real takeaway is even when this is all over with, and I look forward to regathering with my church family. I look forward to being back on the campus at Central with the students and the faculty gathered in chapel, gathered in the classroom, sharing a meal. But there are some practices that this pandemic has caused congregations to do that they should just continue doing. Mm-hmm. I know one ministry who does a 3:00 Bible study every day for 45 minutes on Facebook. Mm-hmm. Even if we were under a pandemic, is that such a bad idea?
Right. Mm-hmm.
I mean, think about that. Why would we want to stop doing that? I know another church that does morning and evening prayers. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. One church invited me to do a devotional, and I found out twice a week at 9:00, the church gathers on Zoom and they have a guest devotional speaker for 15 minutes. Mm-hmm. I've just collected several ideas. We all of a sudden became convicted that we need to shepherd more. So, for example, my wife and I were asked to call a list of names and ask them 5 questions. How are you doing? Is there something we can do for you? Are you able to connect with the church? Is there something we need to be praying for? And I thought we could do that at all times.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
Not just when we're separated from one another in a pandemic. Mm-hmm. So I've just been collecting ideas that these are practices we should have been doing all along, but until the necessity presented itself, they were low priority or we just never considered it. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We assume ministry would just be done the way it's been done all along. And so actually, when I see the aftermath of COVID, I see it sparking innovation.
Okay.
We're going to start thinking theologically more. We're going to start thinking about, are we attractional or missional, or how can we find a good blend? Mm-hmm. I've always thought, yes, if taken to the extreme, those are polar opposites, but there has to be life in the middle. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so it's going to cause us to think, how do we balance our idea of come to us, but now we've experienced the ability to go. Mm-hmm. I think we're also going to find out that we can use technology. I spoke to a small group leader who actually made the comment, we've actually found Zoom to be a little easier on us because of our schedules and our children and our workload. The idea of coming home and gathering for 45 minutes around a computer screen once a week and praying and Bible study and discussion is a lot easier. And then once a month, we're going to have a physical get together to go out and do something for several hours with each other. So it's causing us to rethink even things like how we do small groups. And so I see this as an opportunity for the church to really self-examine and to make an intentional choice as to the direction it's going to take, even when this is over. Because it's shown it's a different way.
When I hear your challenge, if you were to put all of that into a seminal thought, a single statement, because I hear rethink, I hear innovate. Could you help us as elders with a seminal thought?
Even after COVID-19, continue to think about the church deploying itself and how we could continue to do ministry the way we're doing it right now, but even more effectively once it's gone.
Very good.
Don't give up on the practices we've learned are effective just to go back to our default.
Now, let me just tell you a little insight here. I met with your immediate supervisor, your boss, Dr. David Fincher, president of CCCB, and you guys must be in close communication with one another, your whole executive leadership team, because he articulated something very similar. He used different words. As a matter of fact, his seminal thought was, let's nurture the seeds that have been planted by COVID-19. Let's grow what we've had to plant and start. Let's nurture it. Let's develop it. And that really is a reflection of your seminal thought. COVID-19 has forced us to do things differently.
Absolutely.
And let's not go back to old ways. Let's keep thinking through, innovating, moving the church ahead. You know, I think of very much the church and leadership being like a continuum. We have innovators at one extreme. They're always thinking outside of the box. They're always entrepreneurial in design. They're always creating, innovators. To the opposite end of the spectrum, we have adopters, and not just adopters, but late adopters. They arrive, if we have to give online, all right. If we have to record our services, okay. If we have to get a Facebook page, okay. So we have the opposite extreme, and we need to keep pulling leaders to this other end of the spectrum where we think creatively. And we do have the courage to innovate and onboard new ways to advance the kingdom of God. So
absolutely.
I really appreciate your challenge to all of us as elders, that we would lean into that. That it's
Don't
really
stop thinking about innovation.
Yep, it's a discipline, isn't it?
It is. It is, because we by nature fall into predictable patterns. And we become comfortable with routine. And you have to intentionally break the routine. And that's what COVID-19 did to all of us. It broke the routine. So my suggestion is keep breaking the routine.
That's a great line.
Just keep breaking the routine. Force yourself to innovate.
Cool. That's great. Hey, by the way, I really like that shirt of yours.
Yeah, I do too. It's a pleasure to have it.
Yeah, you've got.
We did not call each other ahead of time. Just for
that's right. Well, buddy, thank you so much. I'm so grateful to be doing ministry with you. You are a blessing, not only to CCCB, but to the local church and to elders across the country and around the world.
I'm looking forward when the team can gather in Indianapolis instead of this way. So,
well, blessings to you, Jim. Bye-bye.